Item L, you concur the same thing?
Yes.
Defer that till after executive session. And let's move on to item M, discussion and action regarding the dismissal and replacement of a member or members of the Water Advisory Board. Mr. Wood.
M is not in the, I think that should be the executive session. So, M can't. So, how do I get this discussion going?
It's to you. You requested the item.
Right. I want to discuss the Water Advisory Board, because I sat through a meeting on Monday night. And according to the ordinance that set up the Water Advisory Board, it was given a very specific task. Ordinance 125. Yes.
Yeah.
The Water Advisory Board is governed by ordinance number 125, okay? It was established for issues surrounding water and water rights within the town's CCM. It doesn't say anything about making recommendations on City Hall. I don't see that in here, about where the city should move, what the city should be doing. It doesn't say anything about whether or not the city should take over the water system. It says issues surrounding water and water rights. Okay? I sat through that meeting on Monday night, and the town council was bashed around pretty heavily in that meeting for wanting to look at building a town council and asking the people what they thought. We didn't come up with a plan. We didn't have a building design. We just asked the people what we thought. And in Monday night's meeting, we got ridiculed pretty well for that. We got ridiculed for wanting to take over the water system. Alito was part of that lawsuit that bought the water system. Hudson Oaks was part of it, and Annetta was part of it. Alito manages theirs. Hudson Oaks manages theirs. And Annetta sits out and lets somebody else manage ours. And we continue to do that over and over again. The Water Committee is not doing what we wanted it to do. And I'm making a motion that Dennis Thompson and Traci be removed from the Water Board. That's my motion.
Dennis and who?
Traci.
Traci who?
Both of them. I don't know Traci's last name, I'm sorry.
Fambrough.
Fambrough.
Or Fambrough.
And I'm making a motion that they both removed, because both of them were the two that were very negative. The other three were talking
Okay.
about.
Now, wait a minute. I want to be fair here. Let's first off back up a little bit and say, this is the first we've heard anything. You're talking about the events of a single meeting. And earlier tonight, you even mentioned if everybody that left here disgruntled, we'd have half as many people, if that many at all. I think, in fairness, like I mentioned earlier tonight, when addressing the council instead of an individual council member, that also is covered in the policy and governance process and rules of procedure. Some of these things can be covered so that people know what the rules are and we can play fairly. But I would strongly discourage any committee from criticizing members of the council or the council at large, because that doesn't necessarily work in the best interest of the city. However, I'll also say, and I have said, we're on trial every day. We can have disagreements. I always strongly suggest that when we do, they're conducted civilly. This seems a little bit harsh that it's the first time we're hearing about it and you're asking for immediate removal. And to my knowledge and recollection, I've heard nothing but positive things about the water board as a whole up until this point just now. So I guess I have a little concern about the timing of it, how quickly this came about, and what these comments were that you stated in regards to that tonight.
Mr. Mayor, there's a motion on the floor and there's no second to it, so there should be no discussion on it until it either is seconded or dies from the lack of a second.
I would concede that point of order. I have a motion on the
We're
floor.
not supposed to be hearing from the galley either.
It doesn't matter, I'll concede that point of order, I think that's
I made a
correct.
motion.
I second it.
I have a motion and I have a second from Mr. Moore. Any discussion?
I want to hear the rest of the discussion.
I sent that over for.
I have some
line item
discussion.
7. You can't ask for discussion, I'm sorry.
Well, you get to change stuff to executive session.
Again, I'm going to ask the galley, please. I understand what you're saying here, Mr. Wade, and I anticipated that completely. I mean, by now, I know you pretty well, and I know your motive and your agendas.
It's our law.
It may be, and I'll be glad to read that publicly, and we'll be able to discuss that since you have it on the agenda under item 75. We have a motion and a second for dismissal of 2 water board members. Any discussion?
Well, you know what, I think that maybe Larry is moving a little bit too fast, and I'm trying to, you know, terminate these people from the board. I mean, if there's an issue, maybe Bruce can talk to them or something, but, I mean, this arbitrarily just say, hey, you want them removed.
I'm shortening my list of complaints to 1, because I don't think it's necessary to go into all of them. I think all the crap that we put up with for the last 3 months has been orchestrated from that direction. I think I have enough proof of it, and I'm making my motion.
Well, I have felt in several recent statements that Mr. Thompson's made that he's been quite negative and really over the bounds of what we intended for the water system.
May I say something?
Sorry, not at this time.
Well, I mean, who's gonna be, are we gonna pick someone else, or?
We'll have to probably, but just to fix it, we'll do it later.
But we need people that are gonna bring this town together.
I think
Wow.
that the water advisory committee was a great idea. I think it's been one of the smartest things that the city of Annetta has done in the last several years. It's enabled us to get a lot of information that we normally would not have had in knowing how to operate the water system. Since Mr. Thompson's name has been mentioned, he has obviously been very dedicated in doing the research and getting the information. A while ago, I was chastised for my opinion about someone who was negative, but that didn't seem to stop that action. And if we're saying that the people of the Water Advisory Committee maybe overstepped their bounds a little bit in their criticism, I think in the light of what all they've done, that we should just say, hey, keep your comments about the water system and continue on, and let's grow and let's work together and not do something as exacting as just getting rid of somebody. I mean, I just think that's way too harsh in light of everything that's been accomplished by the Water Advisory Committee.
Any other comments? Mr. Patterson spoke. Mr. Moore, do you have a comment?
No, I've been sitting here, we've been chastised quite a little bit by the water committee, so I'm not real happy with the leadership of it right now.
Isn't there a way we can just reprimand them or something?
You are correct, Rick. We don't have a method for that. However,
Well, this has been a way to do it right here.
exactly that, exactly so. However, it is, I think you used the word harsh, to not have a process for some type of disciplinary action. Again, to only hear about this now for the first time and to have the consequences be dismissal. I would ask if there's any comments from any other accused, and I'd hate to have an action without those accused having a chance to defend themselves. That would, by all appearances, hurt the council and the town of Annetta.
Well, I will say that I appreciate a lot of the hard work that Mr. Thompson has done. And I know he has, and I agree with his idea about the, for whatever it's worth, I agree with his idea about the town hall. I think we could do very well with the idea he has. But he's just been too negative for too long for me to feel like that overall he's done what we need.
Any other discussion?
Well, I'd also like to say, since we talked about the city hall facility, and he made reference to that in his letter, I think that's somewhat justified, because some of the money that's gonna be needed to fund the city hall will come from the water system. Some of it will come from the city, but some of it will come from the water system. So saying those are not related is not really true. Those are related, and it may have been, the attitude may have been a little bit harsh, but if the funds are coming from the water system and the water advisory board is, their advice is that on the city hall in regard to that, I think that's related. I don't think that that's unrelated at all.
The council, as I recollect, requested some of those items to be looked at by the Water Advisory Committee. Isn't that the general understanding, that we asked the Water Advisory Committee to put together the report to run the numbers?
I don't think we asked them to do all the things that they've said. No.
I don't know that we even put any limits on. We said run the numbers. I can take clarification on that. I'm going by my memory, but if we're gonna task.
I don't have any recollection of asking them to run the numbers on a city hall. I think they were opposed to it, and they ran the numbers on their own, but I don't think, and I've been listening to a lot of council meetings. I'm listening to all the tapes.
We're
And
quite
I
aware
don't-
of your request to get every tape and listen for everything.
Yeah, and just keep that in mind and then go for it.
I'm not bad-mouthing
Yes,
you, Larry. No, Larry, you're awful defensive. The history has been here.
Move forward.
I'm ready to move forward. We have any more discussion?
Can I speak?
No.
I believe.
I'm one of the accused.
I'm going to defer to my attorney on this, because I don't know if they would have a right to address, since they are listed particularly. They do not? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll have a motion on the floor. We've had discussion. All in favor of the motion to dismiss from the Water Board Dennis Thompson and Traci Fambrough, signify by raising your hand. I have Mr. Wood, Mr. Patterson, and Mr. Moore in favor of the dismissal. All against? Mr. Sheridan and Mr. Maycheck against. The motion carries 3-2 for their dismissal. That would create 2 vacancies on the Water Advisory Committee.